Hello and welcome to the podcast. In a week when many of us who worked with Alan Yentob are still shocked by news of his death. We all assumed that he would never stop working and campaigning for the BBC until he died, but thought that day was a long way off. But his work lives on, thanks to BBC iPlayer and the values he championed. He was often parodied, something he took in good grace, but never lost his faith in the way the arts could transform lives and entertainment enrich them. He was an outstanding producer, executive, presenter and campaigner. Mind you, he needed the BBC and all those unseen colleagues who did the work Alan couldn't be bothered with, schedulers, accountants and the like, who kept him just on the rails. By the way, his nickname Botany, Yentop backwards, was first given him by another great controller of BBC Two, Brian Wenham. Wenham, my one-time boss in BBC Current Affairs, called me Notlob. Fortunately, it didn't catch on. This week on the podcast, we're joined by someone else who is committed to public service broadcasting, Jonathan Thompson, who runs the Freeview service, which has just launched a new product called Freely. It aims to ensure public service broadcasting does not get lost in the digital future. Jonathan Thompson, welcome to the podcast. On your website, it says this: Freely will play a crucial role in securing the ongoing success of free TV in the UK. How?
Wow, that's a good place to start. So, I should probably first explain who Everyone TV, because Everyone TV is, because I know some of your listeners may not know. We are a joint venture company that is owned by the UK's main public service broadcasters, BBC, ITV, Channel 4 and Channel 5. And our role and heritage is in looking after free-to-air television in the UK. So we manage Freeview, which is obviously a platform used by millions of people today, and also FreeSat, which is a free-to-air satellite TV service. But yes, to your question, Roger, Freely is sort of our new baby, the service that we launched about 12 months or so ago. And I guess at the heart of your question is kind of how will it help secure the future of free-to-air television?
Well, your phrase is a crucial role.
Crucial part of that. I suppose so. A couple of things to say there. First of all is we believe strongly, it's kind of in the mission of the company, that sort of the ability for everybody in the country to be able to access great TV for free is kind of at the heart of why we exist. And I think is at the heart of how our broadcasting system has worked in the UK for decades. So the ability to sort of access free-to-air content from a variety of different broadcasters on top of paid content from Netflix and Sky and others is an important part of the mix. The reason why we think Freely is an important part of the future is really a reflection of how people are changing the way they watch television. There are a growing number of homes now who are not only consuming streaming content, so content delivered over the internet, but increasingly are only watching TV that is delivered over the internet. So today, roughly somewhere near a third of homes are purely internet TV households, which means in essence, they're not using Freeview, they're not using FreeSat, they're not using a traditional broadcast means of watching TV. All their TV consumption is over the internet. So we launched Freely as a way of really providing a service that can cater for that audience, but also prepare for the gradual transition to more and more homes watching more and more TV online. Freely, in essence, is a service that to many viewers will look and feel familiar to what they've known with Freeview. It gives them access to all their favorite live channels in a nice program guide. It gives them the ability to navigate to the best of on-demand content from iPlayer and ITVX, but it's a streaming-first solution. It sits in the latest generation of smart TVs, and it means, in simple terms, to the consumer or to the viewer, they can buy a Freely TV, not plug it into an aerial, just connect it to Wi-Fi or connect it to the internet, and still get a service that offers them the best of free-to-air television.
And if you were not doing this, what do you think it inevitable that the audience for Freeview would shrink as people move across increasingly to IPTV, essentially?
I think there's a risk of that. I think it's important that the broadcasters and industry collectively, through collaboration, through vehicles like Everyone TV, responds to how viewers are changing the way they watch content. And I think that what we've tried to do with Freely is sort of get that balance right between providing a service that looks familiar to viewers and is easy to use, but it's forward-looking in terms of the latest technology, so that we continue to ensure that the best of British content, the best of free-to-air content, the best of public service broadcasting is prominent, is easy to find, and is easy to access in a world where clearly there is just a huge amount more competition for viewers' time and for eyeballs than there ever has been before. So I suppose to your question, yes, I think doing Freely is a part of the broadcasters collectively responding to the growing level of choice, the growing level of competition, which is great for viewers at one level, but we believe we need to ensure that the the best of British content, the best of public service broadcasting is easy to find, easy to watch, easy to discover.
And let's be clear at this point, you did start it last year, but you need a new TV set.
So the way we've developed Freely is it's integrated into smart TVs, and it's using kind of I won't get into the details of technology, but it's using a technology standard that was launched in the last few years. So it's integrated into new smart TVs that you can buy in retail. We have TVs at a range of different price points, from very high-end expensive OLED TVs down to a TV that probably costs around £200. But you do have to buy a new TV. It's not an app. It is integrated into the sort of the user experience of our partners' devices, so that it's almost seamlessly sits alongside services like Netflix and Amazon Prime. What we've done, in essence, is do two things with Freely. We've ensured that we offer a really easy to find and easy to use TV guide with all your favorite live channels, so BBC One, BBC Two, ITV, etc., etc. And you can get to that really easily by pressing the guide button, or there's a rail that shows all the shows on now on the home screen of the TV. So it's very easy to find. So it's integrated into the service on the TV, so it's very natural to the viewer. Rather than just being an app in an app store, it's native to what the consumer sees or the viewer sees.
So you don't need well, I think if you do need an aerial, if you want to get, if I understand it, the free services of Sky and so on, but for dealing with the BBC, ITV, Channel 4, Channel 5, and all of that associated programming, and you've got it from Alba and
exactly.
a whole range of free material, you don't need an aerial. You just need a smart TV.
Yes, exactly.
A new smart TV to operate in that way. Now,
yes.
Of course, just when you've got the TV, one of the things that must really concern you is how prominent this service will be. I mean, if you get this TV and you go on there, but it's difficult to find what you're providing, it's obviously difficult. So what needs to happen, or what is happening to ensure that when you switch on one of these new smart TVs, you can easily access what you offer?
So to your earlier question, in a way, this is why we've designed Freely the way we have. Rather than it just being an app that sits in a long list of apps on your smart TV, we wanted to ensure, to your question, which is absolutely spot on, that free-to-air TV was very easy to find, very kind of prominent on the device. So it's hard to miss, to be honest. So to give you some examples, when you switch on the TV with Freely on the home screen will be a rail of all the live shows with the Freely logo showing you what's on now. And that sits prominently on the home screen. We have a remote control button that's dedicated to Freely that if you press will take you into the Freely service. And equally importantly, if you just press the guide button on the remote control, which is a familiar journey for lots of viewers, that will launch Freely as well. So we have lots of different, we call them entry points, which is a bit of technical jargon, but ways into Freely that are both prominent on the home screen of the TV when you switch on, but also prominent on the remote control, which you may be familiar. Obviously, the likes of Netflix and others have had dedicated remote control buttons for a while. It's a very easy way of navigating. And we've done the same with Freely. So there are lots of different prominent and easy ways to get into the Freely service and get to the show that you want to watch, whether it's live or on demand. But
there are a lot of people in the industry are worried about prominence. And indeed, there's a government inquiry, I think, to it, and a number of people on that, including Colin Brown, a representative of the Voice of Listener and Viewer. What are the issues, therefore, that need to be resolved there to protect public service content?
Yeah, I mean, I think people are obviously right to be concerned about prominence in kind of the new world because of some of the points I was talking about earlier. 20 years ago or even a decade ago, it was pretty easy to find all the channels you wanted to watch on a TV because they were the only choices on that TV. But we live in a world now that if you buy the latest television, there are a plethora of different applications and services from big players like Netflix and Amazon and many others. So there's a lot of competition for sort of the screen real estate. I think the solution to ensuring prominence for public service broadcasting, which has always been in the DNA of how our broadcasting system has worked, is a combination of sort of government intervention and industry response. So the government intervention, very briefly, is the Media Act, which was passed, I think, in the last few days of the previous government and is now being implemented. What the Media Act does very quickly is give a sort of base level of prominence for the public service broadcasting VOD application. So it ensures that iPlayer or ITVX are prominent on a home screen. That's what the implementation will enable. And I think that regulatory backstop's really important. What Freely does is almost an industry solution that builds on that. What Freely does is offer additional choice, flexibility, and functionality to ensure that you can also find live TV, and that you can easily navigate between live TV and on-demand TV. So I suppose the long-winded answer to your question, Roger, is the solution to the prominence challenge, which comes from just greater competition, is a combination of sort of sensible regulatory and public policy intervention, which we have with the Media Act, and that's in the process of being implemented by Ofcom, but also the industry responding with a solution like Freely to ensure that we are also kind of working with partners to offer viewers easy ways to navigate to the content they love. So that's at the heart of what we try to do with Freely.
And to make the obvious point, you are dependent on public service broadcasting continuing. You are, if in the discussion of the Charter or discussion of ITV's future or anything like that, they decided that their future was I can't think of the phrase, a straightforward media company, whatever, not public service, of course you would suffer. But so, you are dependent on the government and the rest of us ensuring that the appetite for public service broadcasting continues and can be satisfied. Otherwise, we're all in trouble, but you're in trouble in particular, aren't you?
Yes, I mean, I hope we're a long way away from anyone considering that there's a case for sort of stopping public service broadcasting in the country. I mean, in some ways, you're right, in essence. We are definitely a creature of the public service broadcasters and of the public service broadcasters working together. They own us and fund us. But I think what's reassuring in the UK is that despite the kind of the level of competition and choice in the marketplace, and we have lots of very strong and impressive commercial players, almost every time the question of public service broadcasting is looked at in this country, whether it's by Ofcom or the government, almost everyone agrees that it's a positive thing that we need to sustain. I mean, the real question and debate ahead of us is kind of what's the best way of doing that in the world that we're heading into, which is a slightly bigger, more existential question than just everyone on TV and Freely. But I think the reassuring thing is that the case for public service broadcasting, almost everyone agrees it has an important role to play. And I believe, I've worked my entire career in the world of public service broadcasting pretty much. It is one of the real strengths of the UK broadcasting system. And whenever I've traveled abroad and talked to other broadcasters in other countries, they are genuinely envious of the system of broadcasting we have in the UK, both public service and commercial as well. So I hope, to your point, that we're a long way away from anyone considering that we shouldn't have public service broadcasting in this country. The question really is what's the best way of delivering it in a very rapidly changing TV landscape?
And just to be, although you need a new set for Freely, just obviously there are no prospect of free view, which is the way most of us, well, I still, for example, watch. There's no question about that being switched off anywhere near future. So, as far as one can, future-proof public service broadcasting delivery in this sense. But you're not, no question, switching anything off at the moment, on perhaps for the next, 10 years?
Yeah, I should have stressed that up front. Absolutely. So Freely is definitely the sort of the new child in the family, but we will continue to support and look after the millions of viewers who use Freeview and FreeSat today for many years to come. So yeah, absolutely no question of thinking about switching those off in the near to medium term. Right. We may come on to talk a little bit more. There's a longer term debate, but we're talking about sort of 10 years or more about the long term future of sort of terrestrial television, which we may want to come on to. But for us, yes, Freely sits alongside Freeview and FreeSat as three platforms that we're continuing to support. And the majority of our viewers are still enjoying Freeview as the main platform. Freely is the new child, if you like, in the family.
Right, now I've got to give you 30 seconds or 40 seconds to tell a person whose passion really enjoys Freeview why, because they're thinking of buying new television, they should update. What do you offer to somebody who's thinking about buying a new set, with Freely installed with it, whatever? What will Freely offer them as an experience that they don't get from Freeview now?
Yeah, no, perfectly good and very good question. Let me try and answer that as sort of simply and easily as possible. So I think there's a few benefits, and I'll try and focus on the main one. So benefit number one is something I mentioned earlier, is that with Freely TVs, you don't need to plug it into an aerial, so you can have it anywhere in the home and just connect it to Wi-Fi. And we found in the kind of some of the early users of Freely that one of the things they like is they can buy a TV and just put it in any room in the household. They're not tied connecting it to where their aerial socket is, which is usually kind of in the living room. So that's benefit number one. In terms of the service itself, I guess two or three things I'd stress. One is what we've tried to do with Freely for those viewers who like watching both live and on-demand content is allow you to more easily navigate between watching a live show and watching an on-demand show very easily. So, and to bring that alive, if you've tuned into a show on BBC One and you're halfway through a drama, you just want to go back to the beginning and watch it on demand, you can do that. If you've stumbled into the second show of a drama but want to start the series from the beginning, you can quickly click on a link to watch it in iPlayer. So the ability to navigate between the best of live and the best of on-demand is better than you can do in a traditional Freeview TV. There'll be more content over time than is offered by Freeview. So Freely allows us to launch a range of additional channels that are delivered purely over IP. And we announced a month or two ago a number of channels our public service broadcaster shareholders will be launching later this year that are effectively exclusive to Freely. They won't be available on Freeview, so more content. And then I think the final thing, and this is something we definitely want to do more work on over time, is one of the benefits of sort of this internet delivery of internet means of distribution and delivery of Freely as a service is we can continue to evolve the service over time. We can effectively update and add new features over time in a way we weren't really able to do with Preview. So that allows us to add new features, new ways of finding content, and even things like accessibility services. So features that will help make the service better for those who may have sight issues or hearing issues. We can add kind of improvements to how the user experience works, how people find content, things like that. So it's the ability to continue to improve and evolve the service over time once someone's bought the TV. We're definitely not trying to force people to buy new TVs. If you've got a Freeview TV and you're happy with it, that's great. You're a happy customer. But if you're thinking about buying a new TV, yeah, we would make the case that buying a Freely TV is a service that probably offers more than a traditional Freeview TV.
But just one other thing, your service won't be available, Freely won't be available on a phone.
We don't have a mobile app currently. The reason why we focused on TVs for the launch is what's interesting is that despite, I think maybe 5 or 10 years ago, we all thought we would spend our entire time kind of watching TV on our mobile phone or a tablet. That was kind of a fashionable perspective a few years ago. What's interesting is actually what research and the kind of evidence tells you from sort of Beeb and other places is that actually what the majority of people like to spend the majority of time in front of the best screen. And that tends to be their big smart TV at home. So the majority of TV viewing is still on the big TV set. So we wanted to focus the launch of Freely on the place they spend most time.
Yeah, most people were surprised by that, don't they? I mean, are we saying most people are most older people? I mean, the preoccupation, obviously, whenever you talk to any public service broadcasters are, where are the young people? Where are they? What are they?
Yes.
They don't even know, even if they watch a BBC programme, they don't know they're watching it. It's just they're on YouTube or whatever. So is it true, is there evidence to suggest that there are still large numbers of young people who do sit round this single main set, if you like, perhaps even with their parents?
Yes, indeed. I mean, I think it's somewhere between 80 and 90% of TV viewing is on the smart TV, on the biggest screen in the home. It's clearly the case that there are definitely kind of younger audiences probably are more likely to be spending also time on a tablet or a mobile phone. So I wouldn't deny that trend is definitely there. But the bulk of viewing, and it's still amongst younger audiences as well, particularly when it's either enjoying a show with their family or even sort of, they may be sitting and watching YouTube. But my own son, does spend a lot of time watching YouTube, but he watches it on a smart TV rather than on his phone or tablet. So a long-winded answer to your question was we focus Freely on smart TV because that's where most people spend their time watching television. It's possible in the future we're always thinking about how we can evolve the service and how we can offer viewers more choice. So we may consider kind of thinking about a mobile version or a tablet version in the future. But at the moment, our focus is on smart TVs as a priority.
Now, when we talked together at a conference of the Voice of the Listener and Viewer, somebody representing a religious awards organisation was concerned that when we talk about prominence, what is advertised at the moment and people try to sell tend to be the most popular programming and series and so on. And she was worried about the fact that on your proposal, prominence will be given or the broadcasters will suggest to you that prominence should be given to their biggest drama series, biggest crime series, everything else. And you think, hold on, what happens to religion, science, other education, other things which are central to public service broadcasting? Will you be able to say we will give them extra or more prominence than they would get elsewhere? You will ensure that crime doesn't rule.
I think the quick answer to that is yes. Let me explain a little bit more. I mean, I remember sitting in meetings 2 or 3 years ago when we were discussing this with the public service broadcasters. One of the reasons for launching Freely was to ensure that when it came to the sort of breadth and diversity of programming that was promoted on a smart TV, we ensured that the public service broadcasters had the ability to kind of promote that range fully rather than only kind of naturally aggregate or sort of focus on shows that were the most popular, almost the slight risk that you just promote the things that are already popular and you kind of get into sort of just promoting shows that are already huge. So we deliberately, one of the reasons we launched Freely was to allow the ability to promote the breadth and diversity of what's available from the public service broadcasters. The way that works today on the service in terms of what we promote is we work with the public service broadcasters. So they will let us know the kind of key shows in a given week that they want to promote. And usually that will be a mix. And unsurprisingly, it'll probably be a mix of maybe 1 or 2 shows that are already quite famous, but they want to push. Often it'll be new shows that they're releasing that week and that they want to promote. But also, and we live and breathe this on a weekly basis, they will ensure that they're promoting sort of what they would describe as perhaps more traditional public service content that might otherwise have got lost out if it had been somebody else's choice. So one of the benefits of Freely is we sort of collectively curate the breadth of what we seek to recommend and promote to the viewer. And we try our best to ensure that that is a mix that reflects the diversity of what's available on. I mean, there are something like, I think it's 70,000 hours of content available within the Freely family. Obviously, it's not from us, it's from the broadcasters who sit on the service, but that's more than Netflix. That's a huge amount. And we want to try and ensure that we're supporting viewers' ability to enjoy the best of all of that, not just kind of the top 10 shows that week. So I think, yes, we do seek to kind of promote a diversity of content and a range of content within which sort of making sure that shows that perhaps might get lost in a world where just an algorithm shows what you wanted to watch, they'll get kind of space to breathe and live and be found.
Of course, if you were a different sort of organisation, you would be particularly concerned about the supply line and what's coming in. And when you look at the supply lines, they are, I don't say they're dwindling, but they're certainly getting thinner. I mean, we look at the BBC, various calculations about the drop in the value of the licence fee, between 30 to 40% since the last 15 years. We also, when I talked to Patrick Spence, who was the executive producer of Mr. Bates versus the Post Office, a couple of weeks ago, he was saying he couldn't make it anymore, but it says he's going to make crime series. Now, being Patrick Spence, it'll be a brilliant crime series. But two things seem to be happening, and you can see with the latest cuts in ITV, is that the amount of programming, if you like, is diminishing in its supply, and that the nature of some of it may be threatened. And one of the things that strikes me watching Freeview and so on is that to an extent we are living, and you are living, on the riches not just of the present but of the past. And sometimes you think, it makes me think that, golden ages maybe did exist. The sheer range. I mean, we are now approaching a real crisis about the funding of public service content, which at the moment is reducing in scale, if not in quality, and some would argue, well, I would, in range. Do you think that's true?
Well, look, you're right in the start of that question that we are, Freely is the beneficiary of the content that is produced by our shareholders and our other content partners as well. We obviously don't control kind of what flows through from them in terms of what they're creating. I think anyone who's been to probably a media conference over the last year or two will probably have heard concerns raised by both the broadcasters themselves and by much of the production community about some of the challenges about kind of ongoing levels of investment in British content. So I think it would be wrong of me to deny there's definitely not some quite significant challenges to the scale and breadth of what the public service broadcasters are able to invest in. I'm an optimist, I guess, for two reasons. One is, I don't think we're in crisis, but I think there are some challenges that need to be addressed. But I go back to, I guess, what we talked about earlier, which is, I think, quite a lot of support for the principle that we should find ways to sustain their ability to invest. And in a way, that is the debate that is happening around the BBC and its charter and future funding and the wider thinking that Ofcom is doing about the future of public service broadcasting. So it is definitely challenged because of greater market conditions, greater market pressure, the writers' strike in America. And there's a number of different factors that have brought about this level of pressure. I think it is real. And I think each of the chief executives of the public service broadcasters have highlighted some of those challenges. But there is still a huge amount of high quality content being produced by them, first of all, that is enjoyed by audiences. And I think there is, I hope, sort of policy recognition that it's a question that needs to be grappled with. So I hope if we're having this conversation in 5 years' time, we look back and go, yes, there were some challenges, but actually we made some sensible decisions to ensure that, the world will look and feel different in 5 years' time. But I hope that the breadth and diversity of great content from the public service broadcasters is still, it will look and feel different, I'm sure, in terms of where they invest and what the kind of mix is, but they're still playing as vital a role as they play today.
And finally, you're convinced that with Freely, you're future-proofing, as it were, the distribution of that content.
I'd like to think we are playing our part in ensuring, that its delivery and its availability and its ease of discovery are being materially helped in what is becoming a much more competitive landscape without Freely, I guess. So yes.
Jonathan Thompson, thank you very much.
Thank you, Roger.
Our thanks to Jonathan Thompson, CEO of Everyone TV. Next week, we'll be talking to Ian Dale, LBC presenter, who's about to publish a biography, a short one, of Margaret Thatcher. I want to talk to him about her views on broadcasting and her inheritance in that area. Do let us know any questions you would like us to put to him. And if you're enjoying our journalism, please do support us for less than the price of a cup of coffee per month. You can do this by either a one-off payment on our crowdfunding page or regularly by signing up to patreon.com/BeebWatch for just £1.99 per month. By signing up to Patreon, this will also entitle you to my weekly blog, which gives my take on the week's interview. The link to this and our crowdfunding page can be found in the description of this program. And that's it for this week. As you probably know, this podcast is presented by me, Roger Bolton, and it's produced by Kate Dixon. The sound is by Dave Kitto, and special thanks to Quinn Genti. It's a Good Egg production. Until next time, goodbye.